My phone buzzed with a storage full alert from the camera app one hadn't opened in months. 10 minutes later, I was watching my wife hug a man at my front door like she'd been counting the minutes. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 38, a finance guy, the kind of man who reads fine print and locks the doors twice. Last winter, our neighborhood got hit. 2 break-ins, 1 stolen package that turned into a smashed window down the block. Everybody stood around at the HOA meeting talking big, then went home and hoped it wouldn't be their turn. I didn't hope. I installed a small 4-camera system, hidden angles, clean coverage, driveway, front door, back patio, and the hallway that feeds the living room. Not for spying, for protection, for my wife Rachel, for our son Noah, for the life I paid for. Then life did what it does. Work, deadlines, dinner, laundry, soccer cleats. I turned the alerts down because I didn't need my phone buzzing every time a squirrel crossed the yard. So when the camera app pushed a storage full warning on a random Saturday, it felt like nothing. A nuisance. A reminder to delete old clips and move on. I opened the app anyway. The timeline loaded, dates stacked like receipts. I tapped the driveway camera, scrolled back, fast-forwarded. That's when I saw it. A silver Honda. Not once, not twice. Again and again, same shape, same color, same place on the curb like it belonged there. It showed up mid-morning on weekdays, sometimes early afternoon. Always when I was supposed to be at work. Always when the house was supposed to be quiet and normal. At first my brain tried to be helpful. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe a delivery. Maybe someone is turning around. But the Honda didn't turn around. The Honda parked. I watched a man get out like he'd done it before. No hesitation. No wrong house look. He walked straight up my driveway, shoulders loose, head up, phone in his hand like he owned the path to my door. Then Rachel opened the door. Not surprised, not cautious, not confused. She smiled, relaxed, private. The kind of smile you don't waste on strangers. She stepped out onto the porch and wrapped her arms around him. Not a quick hello. Not polite contact. A full-body hug that lasted long enough to say things without words. My throat went tight, but my hands stayed steady. I rewound it. I watched it again. Slowing it down like that would change what I saw. Didn't. I switched angles. Front door cam. Hallway. Living room. Every clip I opened felt like I was unbolting parts of my own house and finding rot where the wood should have been solid. I didn't yell. I didn't throw away my phone. I didn't call her name like a wounded man. I sat there, jaw locked, staring at a screen that had become evidence. And the worst part? The storage alert wasn't the start. It was just the first time I looked. Because the Honda had been there a while. And what I'm about to tell you is real. And it gets worse. I swore I'd never become my father. And I made that promise before I knew what vows were. I was 8 when he left. Not in a dramatic way. No screaming, no slammed doors, no last look back like a movie. Just a Saturday morning where his boots weren't by the entry mat and his coffee mug stayed clean. My mom told me he needed space. Adults love soft words for hard damage. I remember the chair more than his face. He had a spot at the table, corner seat, back to the wall, where he could see the kitchen and the living room at once. After he vanished, that chair stayed empty like it was waiting for him to come to his senses. My mom didn't move it. She didn't replace it. She just kept setting 3 plates for a while, then 2, then she stopped setting them at all. She never talked trash about him. That was kind of brutal. Quiet endurance. She worked doubles at the hospital, came home tired, did homework with me at the same table where his chair sat like a ghost. When the bills came, she didn't cry in front of me. She paid what she could, negotiated what she couldn't, and taught me without meaning that stability isn't a feeling. It's something you build with your hands, even when they're shaking. Money became a smell in that house. Not cash itself, fear. The fear that the lights could go off. The fear that the car wouldn't start. The fear that your mom's smile could disappear behind the mask she wore for you. Most kids learn what love looks like from good mornings and bedtime stories. I learned it from my mom showing up no matter what. I learned what a man shouldn't be from a chair that stayed empty. So I wrote my own code early. It wasn't poetic. It was simple. Provide. Protect. never disappear. I didn't say it out loud like some pledge. I didn't need to. It sat behind everything I did: school, work, friendships, who I trusted. The world felt unsafe, so I decided I'd become the kind of person who made it safe for others. Not with speeches, with consistency. That code followed me into adulthood like a tattoo you don't see until the light hits it right. And that's why what Rachel did didn't just hurt my marriage. It detonated the vow I made to that kid staring at an empty chair, trying to understand why a man would walk away from what he helped create. Because I didn't just marry Rachel. I built a life to prove I wasn't him. And when the camera footage lit up my phone, it wasn't only betrayal I felt. It was the floor giving way under the one promise I thought nothing could touch. Stability became my religion, and I didn't even notice I was praying. In high school, I worked nights at a grocery store, stocking shelves, sweeping aisles, counting hours like they were bricks. While other kids burned money on weekends, I watched my mom stretch a paycheck until it begged. So I saved. Not because I was disciplined, because I was scared. Community college wasn't a dream. It was a route. Cheap credits. No nonsense. I picked finance because numbers don't lie and bills don't care how you feel. I wanted a life where the heat stayed on, where groceries weren't a debate, where a kid could ask for something normal and not see panic flash across his mother's eyes. I got internships. I took the jobs nobody wanted. I said yes when everyone else said work-life balance. I stayed late. I learned the system. Promotions came because I made myself useful and hard to replace. The grind did something to me, something I thought was good. I started measuring love the way I measured everything else. Mortgage paid? Safe. Are savings growing? Safe. Car maintained? Safe. No surprises? Safe. I didn't chase big highs. I chased smooth roads. I thought that was maturity. I thought that was what a real man did. Kept the machine running, kept the household insulated from chaos. And I got good at it. Too good. Because when you live like that, you stop listening for the things you can't put on a spreadsheet. You stop paying attention to tone, to distance, to the way someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes. You see outcomes and call them proof. Rachel would say, "You work too much." And I'd hear, "We're secure." She'd say, "I miss you." And I'd hear, "We're building." She'd go quiet at dinner, and I'd think she's tired. Everyone's tired. I didn't see warning signs because I wasn't trained to look for them. I was trained to fix problems you can name: leaks, budgets, plans. Connection isn't like that. You can't brute force it with overtime. I didn't understand that back then. I thought showing up meant being present. Turns out you can be in the house every night and still leave someone alone. I met Rachel at a dental clinic, the kind with beige walls and fake plants that collect dust. I was there for a cleaning after work. Tie loosened, eyes tired, mind still on numbers. She was behind the front desk, calm voice, steady hands, hair pulled back like she wasn't trying to impress anybody. She looked up, smiled, and it wasn't the shiny customer service kind. It was simple, real. We talked while she checked my insurance. 2 minutes that felt like someone turned the noise down in my head. I came back for another appointment I didn't need. Then another. After the third time she laughed and called me out, and I liked that she did. No games. No flirting like a performance. Just two adults noticing each other. Rachel told me she wanted a family. Not in a vague someday way, in a this matters way. She talked about being a present mom, about dinners at the table, about a home that felt warm instead of busy. She said it like it was a plan, not a fantasy. That hit something old in me. That empty chair part. The part that still believed if you built it right, you could keep the world out. Our relationship was simple at first. Cheap diners. Late-night drives with the windows down. Quiet talks in parking lots. She liked my steadiness. I liked her calm. We fit without forcing it. When I proposed, she cried like it meant safety to her too. We didn't have a flashy wedding. Small venue, close friends, family. My mom squeezed my hand and looked proud in a way I'd waited my whole life to see. Rachel promised forever like it was easy to say. Then we did what you're supposed to do. We bought a 2-story suburban home in Colorado. A safe neighborhood, decent schools, room for a kid to run. I remember walking through it the first time, imagining a little backpack on the stairs, a bike in the garage, a Christmas tree in the corner of the living room. That kind of normal felt like victory, and I worked for it like it was oxygen. 50-hour weeks turned into 60. Promotions turned into responsibility. Responsibility turned into a life where I was always physically present, but mentally clocked in somewhere else. Rachel would bring me dinner at my desk sometimes, kiss my cheek, say, "Don't stay up too late." I took that as support. I didn't hear the quiet message underneath it yet. I thought I was building the future we promised each other. I didn't realize I was also building the space where someone else could slip in. Rachel told me she was pregnant on a Tuesday night like it was a secret the house couldn't hold. I walked in, briefcase still in my hand, brain still running on meetings. She was standing in the kitchen with both palms flat on the counter, smiling like she was trying not to shake. There was a little white stick on the granite. First I didn't get it. Then I did, and everything in me went quiet. I picked it up like it might break. 2 lines. Simple ink that changed my entire life. Rachel said my name and laughed through tears. I don't cry much, but my eyes burned anyway. I pulled her in and held her like I could keep the future from hurting her. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about a chair at a table and a little boy wondering why his dad didn't come home. I made the promise again, only this time it had a face attached to it. One I hadn't even seen yet. Noah. Fatherhood flipped a switch in me. Not soft, not sentimental, sharp. I went into overdrive. More hours, more savings, more planning, college fund spreadsheets, insurance policies, emergency cash. I wanted our kid to grow up never hearing the word late fee, never watching his mom count dollars at the kitchen table. Rachel quit her job to stay home like she'd always talked about. It made sense. It matched the dream. I told myself, good. This is what we built. When Noah was born, the hospital room smelled like antiseptic and warm skin. He came out loud and angry at the world. Tiny fists clenched like he was ready to fight. The nurse handed him to me and my hands that signed contracts and carried stress, went careful and gentle without thinking. He looked up at me like I was something permanent. That feeling anchored me. For a while, life felt like proof. Noah's toys in the yard. Rachel hummed while she cooked. Little footprints tracked across the hardwood. Couch time after dinner with Noah curled between us. A cartoon playing while Rachel leaned her head against my shoulder. Quiet luxury. Peace. I'd come home and see them in the living room and feel this deep, private pride. Like I'd beaten the odds. Like I'd outrun my father's shadow. But small cracks don't start as holes. They start as changes you can explain away. Rachel got more tired, more withdrawn. Some days she'd be on her phone when I walked in and set it down too fast. Some nights she'd say she was just overwhelmed and go to bed early. I heard her words and translated them into the language I understood. Stress, workload, routine. I offered solutions. Babysitter, cleaner, date night. She'd nod. Yeah, maybe. And I'd go back to work, because that's what you do when you want to keep the roof steady. I didn't know the roof already had a leak. I just didn't know where to look. The break-ins started small. Porch packages, unlocked cars, garage doors left up by accident. Then a house 2 streets over got hit while the family slept. That's when the neighborhood stopped pretending it was immune. There was a community meeting in the rec center. Folding chairs, angry dads, nervous moms, a cop with a PowerPoint and the same tired advice. Lights, locks, awareness. Most of the room wanted reassurance. I wanted control, so I ordered a modest system. Nothing fancy. For cameras, local storage, hidden placement. I didn't want a billboard that said, "We're scared." I wanted eyes that didn't blink. Rachel took Noah to her parents' place for the weekend. One of those you can have quiet time to catch up on work gestures she used to do. I kissed them goodbye in the driveway, watched Noah wave from the back seat, and the moment the car disappeared I went to work. Ladder, drill, measuring tape. I mounted the driveway cam under the eave where it could catch plates. The front door came tucked high enough you wouldn't notice it unless you knew. The back patio came angled to see the sliding door and fence line. The last one, the hallway, was my insurance policy. If anyone got past the outside, I'd still have a record of where they went. I told myself I'd mention it to Rachel when she got back. Not as permission, just as a heads up. But I didn't. Sunday night came and Noah needed a bath, and Monday hit like a brick and work swallowed me again. The cameras became background like smoke detectors. You don't think about them until they scream. I turned off most alerts because they were noisy. Wind, shadows, motion from a neighbor's cat. I told myself I'd fine-tune it later. Weeks became months. Footage stacked up, day after day, quietly recording our safe life without anyone noticing. The house stayed calm. The bills got paid. The routine kept rolling. And I kept believing the threat was outside. That was the careless omission. Not installing them. Forgetting they were there. Forgetting that the thing I built to protect my family could also show me who was breaking it. Patterns don't lie. They don't care what you hope for. After the storage alert, I told myself I was just clearing old clips. I was looking for normal. Noah playing in the yard, Rachel bringing in groceries, dumb little moments you forget until they're gone. Instead, I found the Honda again. Monday, 11:12 a.m. Wednesday, 1:47 p.m. Friday, 10:03 a.m. Always the same silver shape easing up to the curb like it had a reservation. I zoomed in on the plate. The angle wasn't perfect, but it didn't matter. The real proof wasn't letters and numbers. It was confidence. The guy walked up my driveway like he'd done it 100 times. No scanning the street. No hesitation on the porch. He didn't knock like a stranger either. He knocked like someone who knew she'd open fast. Rachel did. She stepped outside and her body changed the second she saw him. Shoulders dropped. The smile softened. She leaned into him and wrapped her arms around his neck like she'd been holding that impulse back all morning. The hug wasn't quick. It was familiar. My stomach didn't flip. It iced over. I switched to the hallway cam. They came in laughing, quiet, private. She touched his arm as they walked, like guiding him through a place that belonged to both of them now. He followed her down the hall without looking around, because he didn't need to. He already knew the layout. Living room angle. They sat on the couch under the framed photos of Noah's first birthday and our family picture from last summer. Rachel turned toward him like I wasn't even part of her life. He put a hand on her knee. She didn't move it away. Then they kissed. Not a drunk mistake. Not a sudden lapse. A practice thing, easy, comfortable, like it had happened before and would happen again. I paused the clip and stared at the frozen frame. My wife in my house under my kids' pictures, choosing someone else with zero fear of being caught. That's when denial died. Not with a scream. Not with tears. Just a clean, cold understanding. This wasn't a moment. It was a routine. And I was late to my own life. The affair was one thing. Ugly, personal, humiliating. Then I kept digging and it turned into something else. I scrolled through days like I was reviewing transactions, timestamps, patterns, repeat behavior. I wanted to know the size of the lie. I wanted to know how long I'd been walking around like a provider while another man moved through my house like a habit. And then I saw Noah. Not in a sweet way. Not in the background of family life. In the way a kid shows up when you're not thinking about him, when adults are careless. One clip had Rachel leading Noah down the hall with that forced bright voice parents use when they're trying to distract. She pointed him toward his room, closed the door, and went back to the living room. The camera didn't show inside his room, but it didn't need to. You could see the way she moved. Fast, focused, impatient. Like he was an obstacle between her and what she wanted. Another day, I checked the driveway cam and the Honda was already there. The timestamp sat in the corner, plain as a receipt. I watched the clock crawl forward, watched her stay in that bubble, laughing, touching, forgetting the world, until the time she should have been leaving for preschool pickup. The next clip was her pulling into the driveway later than normal, hurrying like she'd just remembered she had a child. Not panicked because she'd missed him, panicked because the schedule had teeth. That's when it stopped being about me. Cheating hurts a man's pride. It makes you feel replaced, disrespected, used. But seeing my son treated like a door to be shut, seeing his routine bent around her secret, that hit a different part of me, the part with the code. provide, protect, never disappear. I sat in my office chair and didn't move for a long time. My hands were steady, but my jaw ached from clenching. I thought about storming into the kitchen, throwing the phone down, making her explain herself right there. And I pictured Noah hearing it. I pictured him standing on the stairs with that confused kid face, watching his parents turn into strangers. I pictured my anger splashing onto him like it was his job to absorb it. So I chose silence. Not because I was scared, because I was thinking. That night at dinner I acted normal. I asked Noah about his day. I laughed at the parts you're supposed to laugh at. I cleaned the plates. I packed his lunch for the next morning. I kissed Rachel goodnight like a man who didn't know anything. And the whole time I studied her in real life. The way she avoided my eyes, the way she reached for her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, the way she talked about stress like it was a shield. I didn't confront her in anger. I started planning in clarity. Because whatever happened next couldn't be about my pain. It had to be about my son getting a stable life, one built on truth, not a performance. Once I decided it was about Noah, the emotion stopped driving. Not because it disappeared, because I put it in the passenger seat and locked the window. That night, after Rachel went upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and a laptop like I was closing out an audit. I pulled every clip that mattered. Not the ones that made my stomach turn. The ones a judge would understand without needing my anger translated. I made folders by date. I renamed files with timestamps. Driveway, front door, hallway, living room. If someone looked at it months later, it would still make sense. I backed it up to an external drive, then again somewhere offsite because 1 copy is a mistake and 2 is a habit. While I worked, the house stayed quiet. The dishwasher clicked. The heater kicked on. Noah's nightlight glowed down the hall. Normal life humming over a lie like insulation over mold. When I finished, I didn't sit there and spiral. I didn't pour a drink. I didn't text a friend for validation. I stood up, checked Noah's door like I always did, and went to bed. I slept like a man who finally had a plan. The next day, on my lunch break, I called a family attorney. Her assistant asked for my name and a reason for the appointment. Custody, I said. Divorce. She got me in quick. Her office smelled like coffee and paper. The walls were lined with framed degrees and calm landscaping photos that didn't belong in real life. She shook my hand, looked me in the eye, and didn't waste time. Tell me what happened, she said. So I did. Clean. No speeches. No dramatic pauses. I told her about the cameras, the Honda, the repeat visits, the footage with Noah's routine getting pushed aside. I told her I wasn't looking to scorch earth. I was looking to keep my son safe and stable. She listened like she'd heard worse, but she didn't treat mine like it was nothing. What you have is evidence, she said. Not just betrayal. A pattern. I asked what mattered and what didn't. She told me bluntly, judges care about the child's best interest. They care about stability, consistency, and documented behavior. They don't care about my pride, Rachel's tears, or who people feel sorry for. Then she gave me the same advice every smart professional gives a man who's about to blow his life up. Keep your mouth shut until it's time to speak in the right place. Do not confront her until we file, she said. Do not threaten, do not bargain, do not explode. Keep your routine. Keep your tone. Protect your credibility. I nodded, because that matched the code I'd lived by my whole life. Provide, protect, never disappear. The only difference now was who I was protecting Noah from. We moved fast. Paperwork, filing, temporary custody request. A schedule that kept Noah's day as unchanged as possible. My attorney told me to avoid leaving the house, avoid shouting matches, and avoid anything that could be twisted into instability. So I became bored on purpose. I still went to work. I still made breakfast. I still packed Noah's lunch with the stupid little note he couldn't read yet but loved anyway. I still asked Rachel if she needed anything from the store, because I wasn't going to tip my hand in the middle of my own house. It wasn't a weakness. It was discipline. The day we served her, Noah was at preschool. That was non-negotiable. I refused to make my son watch his world crack in real time. Rachel was in the kitchen when the process server stepped in. She looked confused at first, then offended, like being handed consequences was somehow rude. "What is this?" she asked, flipping pages too fast to absorb the words. "Divorce," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. It was just a fact, like stating the weather. Her eyes snapped up to mine. "Ethan, what are you doing?" "I've seen the videos," I said. "All of them." The color drained from her face in a slow wave. Her mouth opened like an explanation was going to sprint out and save her. Nothing came. Then it hit. She tried to reframe it. "You were never here. You're always working. I was lonely." "Stop," I said. One word. Quiet. Not a fight, not a debate. She stared at me, like she'd expected anger she could point to, something messy she could weaponize. But I wasn't giving her that gift. "What about Noah?" she whispered, and for a second it sounded like concern. Then it sounded like panic. "That's exactly why," I said. The weeks after that were not cinematic. They were administrative and exhausting, like moving house with a sprained back. Meetings, calls, emails, temporary orders, a calendar that now had handoffs and rules. Rachel cried. She pleaded. She swung between apologizing and blaming me like she couldn't decide which version would work better. I didn't argue with her, not because I forgave her, because arguing is how you create fog. We went to hearings. Lawyers did most of the talking, which is what I wanted. In court, emotion is a liability. Proof is a weapon. When the footage came up, Rachel's shoulders tightened. The judge watched in that careful, neutral way people watch things they wish they didn't have to see. The timestamps did more damage than any insult I could have thrown. The repeat visits, the comfort, the fact that it happened in our home, around our child's routine. Rachel's lawyer tried to soften it. Poor judgment. A difficult season. A stressed mother. The judge didn't bite. At the end, the ruling landed like a door closing. Primary custody to me. A structured parenting schedule for Rachel. No alimony. The house stayed with me because it was the stable base, Noah's school zone, his room, his neighborhood, the place his life already fit. When it was over, Rachel stood outside the courthouse looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Not because she'd become less of a person overnight, because the fantasy had finally met reality. She said, "I never thought you'd do this." I looked at her and felt something cold and clear. "I didn't think you'd do what you did," I said. Then I walked away. After the paperwork, the house felt strange, like the air had been replaced. Noah didn't care about legal language. He cared about who made him oatmeal and who read him a story and who showed up at pickup on time. So I changed my life. I cut my hours at work, took a smaller bonus, let a few career ladders burn behind me without looking back. I adjusted my budget like a man who knows what matters now. I built a routine that didn't just fund Noah's childhood, it lived inside it. Mornings became ours. Evenings became ours. The little moments I'd traded away for security, I started buying back with presents. I got therapy too, not because I wanted to talk about feelings for fun, because resentment is poison, and I wasn't letting it drip into my son's future. I learned how to carry anger without handing it to a child. I learned how to answer Noah's questions without making him choose sides. When he asked why Mom didn't live here, I told him the truth he could handle. "Mom and Dad couldn't be married anymore," I said. "But we both love you. You're safe. No speeches. No character assassination. No lies." Over time, the house stopped feeling like a place where I got fooled. It became a place where I got honest. I replaced the couch. I repainted the living room, not as symbolism because it needed to be done, and because a man has the right to change what hurt him into something usable. And that's the ending people don't expect. It wasn't revenge. It was clear. Sometimes protecting your family means walking away from the lie, without leaving your child, without losing your self-respect, and without turning into the kind of man who disappears.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.